Long before the noise of our modern world, there lived souls who walked with quiet majesty, hearts polished by faith, faces illuminated by devotion. Among them was a man whose name would echo through centuries. A scholar, a saint, a reformer of hearts and minds, Imam Rabbani. May Allah have mercy on him. His life was a tapestry woven from both the seen and the unseen, threads of knowledge, humility, patience, and divine love. In him, intellect bowed before revelation, and reason found peace within faith. He was born in the land of India, in the town of Sirhind. During the blessed month of Shawwal, in the year 971 AH, a time when empires glittered, yet faith trembled beneath the weight of confusion, it was said that his noble lineage reached back to Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph of Islam. May Allah be pleased with him. From the first breath of his life, light seemed to surround him, a light that many would later call the dawn of renewal for the second millennium of Islam. His father, Sheikh Abdullah Effendi, was a man of immense piety, well-versed in both the Qadiri and Chishti Sufi paths. He taught his son not only the words of the Quran, but the adab, the sacred etiquette of living as one who remembers Allah in every moment. Under his father's watchful eye, young Ahmad memorized the Holy Quran swiftly, his heart drinking its meanings like thirsty soil, receiving rain. Even as a child, he was known for his silence, listening more than he spoke, watching the movements of the scholars around him, and absorbing knowledge as if each word were a drop of light. His father would often say, "This boy will revive what time has forgotten." Few then understood how true those words would become. When he came of age, he traveled to Sialkot, one of the great centers of learning in that era. There he studied under renowned teachers, diving deep into tafsir, hadith and fiqh, the sciences of the Quran, the sayings of the Prophet, and the sacred law that shapes a believer's life. His mind was sharp and his memory vast. By the age of 17, he had already mastered the core sciences that take most a lifetime, yet knowledge to him was never for pride. He would later write, "Knowledge is a mirror. It shows you your flaws more clearly than your virtues." Returning home, he began teaching, and students flocked to him, drawn not only by his intellect, but by the serenity that radiated from his presence. Around this time, in his late teens, he authored his first major work, Isbat al-Nubuwah, the proof of prophethood, a defense of the necessity of revelation at a time when some philosophers in royal courts claimed reason alone was enough. His words struck hearts like lightning, yet carried the fragrance of mercy. When his beloved father passed away in 1007 AH, 1599 CE, Imam Rabbani bore the loss with silent dignity. Before leaving this world, his father placed his hand on his son's head and said, "You are now the keeper of this trust." With that blessing, Imam Rabbani became both scholar and spiritual heir. At the age of 37, he intended to travel to the Holy Lands for Hajj, but Allah had another path awaiting him. In Delhi, a friend suggested he meet the great Sufi master, Sheikh Baqi Billah Naqshbandi, whose presence was known to transform hearts. When Imam Rabbani entered the Sheikh's company, it was as if two oceans met, the ocean of knowledge and the ocean of spiritual realization. He remained there for 3 months. Though he had missed the Hajj that year, he found a pilgrimage of the heart that few ever attain. Sheikh Baqi Billah soon recognized in him a light that would outshine generations. With humility rare even among saints, Imam Rabbani later transferred most of his disciples to his teacher, saying, "What I have belongs to him who awakened me." Their companionship became the turning point of his life. When Sheikh Baqi Billah passed away, Imam Rabbani took upon himself the duty of guiding seekers along the Naqshbandi path. Yet he never ceased to feel himself a student. His letters, written to disciples, scholars, and even kings, became a treasury of wisdom, a map for those who sought to balance the law and the heart. Each year, he would visit his teacher's resting place in the month of Mujaddid Alf Thani, offering prayers and reflections. To him, Remembrance of his Sheikh was remembrance of Allah, for true love of one's guide is love of the one who sent him. Imam Rabbani's life was not free from trials. He lived during a time when rulers, fascinated by philosophy and power, began to mix truth with falsehood, blurring the boundaries of belief. Yet he stood firm, not with rebellion, but with knowledge and patience. When confronted by those who mocked religious scholars, he answered with such clarity that even his opponents were left in awe. He would often say, "Faith is not inherited, it must be awakened in every generation," and awaken it he did. Despite his growing fame, he lived simply. His gatherings were filled with light and humility. Whenever guests arrived, he would rise to greet them, whether they were scholars or ordinary travelers. Food was prepared for all, and no visitor left hungry. When non-Muslims of high rank came to see him, he remained seated out of respect for the dignity of faith, teaching silently that the believer's honor comes only from Allah. He endured persecution, imprisonment, and injustice with unshakable patience. Even in hardship, his tongue never uttered complaint. To his students he would say, "When Allah hides comfort from you, He's polishing your heart for something greater." He loved to attend funerals, often reciting the verse, "Indeed, to Allah we belong, and to Him we shall return," Quran 2:156, and praying for mercy upon every soul, for he saw each human as a traveler returning to the same eternal home. Mid-video reminder for YouTube narration. Before we continue, take a moment to support Islamic Tales Hub. Subscribe, like, and share so more hearts can find light through stories of faith and wisdom. Your one click helps spread remembrance where it's most needed. As the years passed, his inner life deepened. He often spoke of the battle against the self, the greatest jihad of all. "The veil between you and your Lord," he said, "is not the world. It is your own self. To love Allah, the heart must be emptied of all that rivals Him." He taught that worldly desires, wealth, fame, admiration, are not sins by themselves, but when loved for the ego's sake, they become chains. "Break those chains," he would tell his disciples, "and you will find wings." One of his disciples, Muhammad Salih Kalabi, recorded a moment when the Imam prayed for the sick. The gathering was silent. The air seemed to tremble with reverence. Imam Rabbani raised his hands and whispered a supplication, teaching that it should be recited over water for healing. In a nearby village, a young boy named Al lay ill. His mother recited the prayer over water and gave it to her child. By Allah's mercy, the boy smiled and recovered. The story spread, not as a tale of magic, but as proof of what happens when faith and sincerity meet divine decree. For Imam Rabbani, such events were never self-glorification. He would say, "If any light appears through me, it is only the reflection of my master's lamp." His concern for the faith of his time grew stronger. Many were misled by philosophies that diluted the clarity of Islamic creed. With patience, he wrote letters explaining the beliefs of Ahl al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, urging scholars and rulers alike to hold fast to authentic teaching. He reminded them that Islam's strength lies not in argument, but in balance, between law and love, intellect and submission. He was called Mujaddid Alf Thani, the renewer of the Second Millennium, because he revived the spirit of Islam when its light had dimmed. His influence reached far beyond India. His letters were read in Persia, Central Asia, and the Ottoman lands. Those letters remain alive today, each one a river of guidance. He wrote of the signs of the end times, the descent of Prophet C, peace be upon him, and the final decline of faith. But even when describing dark times, he offered hope. The world will never be void of Allah's friends, even if their number becomes few. He emphasized again and again that the essence of success is attachment to the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. He once said, "All blessings that flow through me are from my connection to the Messenger of Allah." Even the smallest act done according to the Sunnah, entering the house with the right foot, eating with moderation, smiling at a brother, was, in his eyes, a door to divine mercy, Once, he accidentally entered a restroom with his right foot first. Later, he said he felt a spiritual dullness that entire day, grieving that he had neglected the Sunnah even in so small a matter. For him, nothing was trivial if it touched the Prophet's way. When a disciple brought him 6 carnations instead of 1, he gently reminded him, Allah is one and loves what is one. Such moments revealed how deeply he lived with awareness of the divine. He would often reflect on the sacred phrase, La ilaha illa Allah. There is no God but Allah. To him, it was not merely a statement, but the beating heart of creation. If this phrase can extinguish the fire of hell, he said, then how swiftly it can cool the fires of anger and grief within us. He urged his students to repeat it with both tongue and heart until it became their breath. Imam Rabbani's devotion extended into every hour of the day. He rose before dawn for tahajjud, performing ablution carefully, often using the miswak as the Prophet recommended. In his early years, he would recite Surah Yasin during those quiet hours. Later, he completed the entire Quran in his nightly prayers. After worship, he would sit in reflection, whispering remembrance until the first light of Fajr spread across the sky. His mornings were spent with his family, offering warmth and affection before retreating to study or teach. His disciples noted that he always encouraged high aims, silent remembrance, and concealment of spiritual states. Hide your experiences, he would say, as you would hide a precious gem. He disliked backbiting and speaking ill of others. If Allah veiled someone's faults, he said, why should we unveil them? His respect for the Sunnah showed even in small habits, washing the right side of his face first, eating little, resting briefly after midday prayer. Throughout the day, his home was filled with guests, students, scholars, travelers. He ensured all were fed and comforted. Once, when his kitchen ran short of food, he smiled and said, "Feed them from what we have. The provider is never poor." During Ramadan, his worship multiplied. He completed the Quran at least 3 times during the month and spent the final 10 days in seclusion, itikaf, seeking only Allah's company. He broke his fast promptly at sunset, following the Sunnah, and delayed suhoor until the final moments before dawn. In charity, he was precise. Whenever wealth came to him, he immediately calculated his zakah, never waiting for a full year to pass. The poor, widows, and students of knowledge were his priority. Even in hardship, he would give, saying, "Charity purifies wealth the way water extinguishes fire." He taught that self-admiration, UJB, is more dangerous than sin. A single spark of pride, he warned, can burn forests of good deeds. To his disciples, he wrote, "Consider your good actions incomplete. Let humility be your perfume before Allah." Miracles followed him quietly, though he never sought them. Once he was called to a neighbor's home where despair hung heavy. Realizing that the man had slipped into practices of shirk, Imam Rabbani prayed for him with tears, then whispered, "O Lord, if light has left him, let it not be because of my unworthiness." Such humility was the essence of his greatness. He often remembered the words of Shah Naqshbandi, "May Allah sanctify his secret. Anything the mind can grasp is not Allah." These words became a lantern in his path, reminding him that the divine is known not through form, but through surrender. As the years passed, Imam Ahmad Sirhindi's fame grew quietly, not through noise or power, but through the gentle pull of truth. His words reached hearts that had long been asleep. Scholars from distant lands came to sit with him, not merely to learn, but to remember. He spoke little of himself. When people praised him, he would bow his head and say softly, "All goodness belongs to Allah. I'm only a seeker, walking upon his mercy." But those who saw him felt something different, a presence that lifted the soul. In his gatherings, the remembrance of Allah flowed like a river. The verses of the Quran, when recited in his company, seemed to open new worlds. At this time, the Mughal Empire stood tall in the world. Palaces of marble gleamed under the Indian sun, and poets sang in royal courts. Yet beneath that glitter, a quiet darkness spread, confusion in belief, neglect of faith, and the rise of philosophies that blurred the line between truth and falsehood. Imam Rabbani saw the danger clearly. He understood that without a spiritual revival, the heart of Islam in the empire would fade. So he began his mission, not of rebellion, but of renewal. He wrote letters, hundreds of them, filled with wisdom, guidance, and spiritual light. These letters, known later as maktubat, became a treasury of divine insight. Through them he spoke to scholars, kings, and ordinary believers, reminding them that real power lies in submission to Allah alone. His words carried both beauty and strength. He wrote, "The light of faith is hidden beneath the veil of heedlessness. Remove that veil, and you will see that every breath is a sign of His mercy." One by one, his students began to change. Hearts softened, faith deepened. The remembrance of Allah once again began to echo in the cities of Hind. But as light spreads, so too does resistance rise. There were those who could not bear the purity of his message, people whose hearts were tied to pride, position, and the pleasures of the world. They saw in Imam Rabbani not a scholar, but a threat. Rumors began to spread that he opposed the rulers, that he spoke against the empire. False accusations reached the Mughal court, where Emperor Jahangir ruled. The emperor, though intelligent and artistic, was surrounded by men who misunderstood the Imam's mission. They painted him as a man of division, not unity. When Imam Rabbani was summoned to the royal court, he went with calm dignity. There was no fear in his heart, for he knew no ruler on earth could harm the one who walks under the protection of Allah. Standing before the emperor, he spoke with the serenity of one whose trust was complete. His tone was neither proud nor fearful, only truthful. He reminded Jahangir of the reality of this world, that kingship fades, but the kingdom of the soul remains. The emperor listened, torn between pride and awe. Some accounts say that when Imam Rabbani spoke, a silence filled the hall so deep that even the courtiers held their breath. His words were like light cutting through darkness, calm, yet impossible to ignore. But the world often misunderstands saints. The emperor ordered him imprisoned, not out of cruelty, but out of confusion. In the cold walls of the Gwalior fort, Imam Rabbani spent months in solitude. Yet for him, the prison was not a place of grief. It was a sanctuary. In that stillness his heart soared. He wrote, "They have confined my body, but my spirit travels freely in the gardens of remembrance." Those who guarded him often felt peace simply by being near him. Some embraced Islam through his words. Even within the stone walls, he continued his mission, spreading light where no light was meant to shine. Before we go further into his miraculous release and the golden years of his revival, make sure you're subscribed to Islamic Tales Hub, where the stories of saints and scholars live forever in the light of truth. Days turned into nights, and nights into long silences within the stone walls of Gwalior Fort. Yet in that solitude, Imam Rabbani, rahimahullah, found not sorrow, but serenity. His heart had entered a realm where chains could not reach. Every breath became a remembrance, every tear a pearl of gratitude. Outside the prison, his followers wept and prayed. Letters carrying his wisdom still circulated secretly, spreading courage and faith. The Mughal lands began to whisper his name. Again, the name of the man who found freedom even in captivity. Then one morning, something remarkable happened. Emperor Jahangir, once firm in his suspicion, began to feel a stirring in his heart. He could not sleep. In his dreams, he saw the Imam clothed in light, reciting the verses of the Quran. The emperor awoke trembling, realizing that what he had imprisoned was not rebellion, but truth itself. He summoned the Imam once more. When the two met, Jahangir's eyes softened. He saw before him a man of peace, untouched by anger, whose very presence carried mercy. The Imam greeted him gently, with the dignity of one who knows that all power belongs only to Allah. He spoke not of revenge, but of forgiveness, not of politics, but of the heart. Jahangir, moved by the humility and purity of the saint, released him from prison and honored him publicly. From that moment, the emperor's attitude changed. He began to show greater respect for the ulama and the sacred laws of Islam. The court that once echoed with pride and luxury began to hear once again the recitation of divine words. Imam Rabbani returned home, but he returned greater in spirit, deeper in wisdom, and stronger in faith. People thronged to meet him. Scholars, Sufis, and seekers from every corner came to sit in his gatherings. His home became a garden of remembrance, a place where souls were watered with truth. He reminded his followers that spiritual awakening was not in miracles or fame, but in purity of heart and obedience to the Shariah. He would say, the true journey is not through lands and seas, but from the self toward the Creator. His message revived the soul of a generation. He re-established the balance between Shariah and Tariqah, law and love, outer form and inner reality. Through his pen and his prayers, the faith of millions found renewal. As age touched his face, his light only grew. His letters, the Maktubat, continued to pour forth, each one a spark of divine understanding. Even today, centuries later, they remain among the most treasured writings of Islamic spirituality. Toward the end of his blessed life, Imam Rabbani withdrew often into solitude, spending his nights in prayer and reflection. His voice could be heard softly reciting the Quran, sometimes weeping, sometimes whispering the name of Allah with such sweetness that even the night seemed to pause and listen. When the moment of departure arrived, he left this world as he had lived in it, in peace. Those around him saw a calm smile upon his face. It was as if he was merely returning home to the one he had loved all his life. His resting place in Sirhind became a sanctuary of remembrance. Visitors from across the world still come, hearts trembling, eyes moist, to whisper a prayer beside his blessed grave. For through him, Allah revived not just the religion of a nation, but the faith of hearts. Before we end, if this story has touched your soul, take a moment to subscribe to Islamic Tales Hub, where the lives of saints, scholars, and believers continue to inspire, heal, and awaken. After the passing of Imam Rabbani Ahmad Sirhindi, rahimahullah, a deep silence filled the air of Sirhind. The scholars, students, and ordinary believers who had once gathered around his presence now sat in tears, feeling as though a great light had returned to its source. But that light did not fade. It spread. His teachings became the heart of a revival that would echo through centuries. From India to Central Asia, from the Ottoman lands to the far corners of the Muslim world, his message of balance and purity continued to awaken hearts. He had reminded the world of something timeless, that the path to Allah is not through extremes, but through sincerity. He taught that Shariah and Tasawwuf are not two paths, they are one. The law purifies the action, and love purifies the heart. Together they lead to Allah. Generations of scholars took his writings, studied them, and passed them on. The Naqshbandi Mujaddidi order that emerged from his guidance became a river of spiritual renewal. Through his legacy, thousands found peace in remembrance, clarity in confusion, and steadfastness in faith. He was given the title Mujaddid Alf Thani, the reviver of the Second Millennium, because through him, Allah revived the essence of Islam for an entire era. His influence reached beyond borders and dynasties. Even those who had never met him felt the warmth of his words in their hearts. His writings spoke across time, reminding every generation that the heart must remain awake, no matter how dark the world becomes. In one of his letters he wrote, "Do not seek miracles in the breaking of nature. The greatest miracle is the transformation of the heart." These words still breathe life today. They remind us that faith is not a show of power, but a journey of humility, not a matter of appearance, but of remembrance. Imam Rabbani's life stands as a mirror, reflecting the beauty of submission, the strength of truth, and the serenity of those who walk close to Allah. When we look at his legacy now, we see that his mission was not only for his own time. It was a call for all ages, to revive what is forgotten, to cleanse what has been corrupted, and to return to the simple, radiant truth of La ilaha illallah. In our own time, an age of distraction and noise, his voice still whispers across the centuries. Turn back to your Lord. There is peace waiting for you in his remembrance. The world he lived in has changed. Empires have fallen, and generations have passed. But his light continues to guide those who seek it. For the hearts that carry remembrance, time does not erase. It only deepens the connection. So when you hear his name, Imam Rabbani Ahmad Sirhindi, rahimahullah, remember, not just a man, but a mission of awakening humility and divine love, and perhaps through his words and example, we too can revive the faith within our own hearts, to live as he lived, with sincerity, devotion, and peace. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment now. Subscribe to Islamic Tales Hub, where the lives of saints and scholars continue to remind us of who we truly are, souls seeking our Creator.